Hey everyone, this is Mr. Everything, and in this video I'm going to be doing one of my household product reviews. It's DampRid moisture absorber. These moisture absorber videos, I'm actually surprised at how many people are interested in them. I mean, there's not much. I'm just going to talk about my experience, and then at the end I'm going to talk about why I tried this one. In the past, I've used multiple different iterations of the DampRid, starting with those little containers. Those work fine, but they're pretty small. They do work, but you wonder, how much capacity and how much are they really taking out of the air just because they're so small. Now, under a sink cabinet, maybe in a little closet, if you have a car, obviously if this car was sitting and stationary, not being driven, maybe those situations, but otherwise I think you need a larger capacity one. And I normally use the bags, but I actually had one that was defective, so I'll talk about that at the end of the video. But because of that, I went with this larger. Now this one is 15.5 ounces or 2 pounds as it's showing here. I'm not exactly sure how they get 2 pounds out of 15 ounces unless they mean that the conversion from when it's saturated, it'll hold up to 2 pounds of water. But nonetheless, this is their powder in the most, in the highest capacity container that I know of, that I noticed they sell now. And I've been using this, so I'm not going to tip it much because it has a lot of greasy looking water in it. But there are other kinds. I wanted to speak specifically to this one. So basically they say just to activate it, you take the lid off. Clearly isn't all that easy. And then there's this protective cover, which I'll talk about here in a moment. And then I just set it on the lid in case it, for some reason, would like froth up or get spilled. But then I had one of these, I think it's like for planters or something, it's a real cheap one. So I put it in there just in case I would splash. It would protect any furniture or the floor, depending on where I have it. Now, it does have this protective seal over top of it. And with other moisture absorbers, they always say not to tear this. But I want to speak in the past to all my experiences. If you don't open this seal, it works way slower. It might get damp and soggy after a week or 2 weeks. You might see some water collect at that point. It's going to be minimal amounts. If you remove the seal, or in this case I just took a little piece of it off, it'll, this is like, can you see how it's like sloshing around in there? I can't really tell because of the label, and I'm not wanting to flip this around much, just how much water, but it's very heavy, so it's got to have a lot of water in it. They seem to work better. Now again, people, it's a point of argument. They'll say, well, you're not following the instructions, do it the way they say. What I would suggest is try it both ways, see which way you like. You want to leave that seal, it's still going to work, it just seems to be less efficient. You remove the seal, or in this case, since it's so large, I just, again, took this piece off. Seems to work way faster, which in my mind means it's probably taking more moisture out at a quicker rate, similar to how a dehumidifier would work, but obviously not near to that efficiency. So I'll just leave that there. Just try it either way, or just do it the way you want. But just know, if you don't think it's working that well, or you want the best performance, take this off. Now, I've used this for about 2 months now, and I don't notice any odors. It doesn't smell weird. I really don't want to mess with it. I do have this Q-tip here. It's pretty hard there, so I don't know if that's going to absorb anymore, because it's almost like cat litter. It's, granular, and right now this is just a hard, almost looks like a glacier or something, and then you have some gunk, and then it feels pretty solid down there. So I'm assuming it's probably already solidified, and maybe no more is going to drip through. However, this is designed for the collection at the bottom, so this may be fully saturated now. I don't really know, but I know it did take a good bit out. I think it's just worth an option. This is the bigger capacity when they're not reusable. They say to dump it down the toilet. I don't think I would dump that. I'd probably just bag it up real tight and put it in your garbage, quite frankly, unless there's somehow like a proper way to recycle it, which I don't know if there is. I really don't think there's too much else to say here. Just know that they make this model, which should hold the highest capacity, which means it should be needed to be changed out the least, and it's priced about the same as the bags. Now, hopefully that was helpful. For the remainder of the video, these are what I've been using, just the regular old bags. And I hung one up, and I actually was in a situation where I needed to be away from home for almost a month. So I figured, well, let me go ahead and put hang a new bag up. And it was, I think, a day or two before I had to leave, I noticed that the bag was dripping. And same with this, that's very greasy. And it made just a mess. And it was only a few drops for maybe half a day when I caught it. And it was kind of where some electronics are, but there was some paper and stuff. Nothing got damaged, but everything had that film on it. Everything needed to be wiped off. It was a mess. And I've used these bags for probably over 5 years now. That's the first time that's ever happened to me. But thankfully I caught it before, because otherwise that would have been dripping for nearly a whole month until I would have came back, and it would have been a nightmare. So that's why I went with this, because obviously there's really no way for it to leak. And I wouldn't discourage you from buying the bags, but what I'm going to do with the remainder, just in case it was a defective batch, I'm just going to get a Ziploc bag and then drop the regular bag in that and leave a gap and tape it around it. So that way, if it does start to leak, it'll just go into the Ziploc bag, and then at that point I can just notice it's defective and throw it out. But I might start doing that for a while. I don't know again why that happened. I've never had that issue with the DampRid. They've always been good products, but this was the alternative I went with, so I figured I would share it with you just to let you know that there is this model now, which I think is pretty good, and it's the same price as the 3 bags. So hopefully that was helpful. I couldn't really show much, but I just kind of talked about my experience with this. Thanks for watching, and you'll see me in the next one. Have a good one.